Welcome to Nextfem Leaders, a podcast for conscious, ambitious women who want to make a real impact with their careers without losing themselves or their well-being in the process. I'm Isabel, your host, a leadership coach with over 13 years of corporate experience. I know how hard it is to lead in systems not built for us, especially if you're introvert, kind, intuitive, or spiritual. So here, each week, I will share tools that blend the practical and the mystical, the feminine and the masculine, so that you can lead with clarity, confidence, and authenticity. If you know in your bones you're meant for much more, you are in the right place. So let's start. Hello, beautiful woman. Welcome back to Nextfem Leaders in our episode 13. Last week's episode received so much thoughtful reviews and comments, so thank you for sharing your insights because that's how I keep learning alongside you on this beautiful journey we have embarked on together already 3 months ago. So I want to take this opportunity to remind you that since it's September, here at Nextfem Leaders, both of our programs are now open for registrations. Becoming Her is my one-to-one leadership coaching program where we work together in an individual basis for 6 to 7 months on your career goals, helping you to step in the next level with confidence and authenticity. We only have a few spots available for this program. But this autumn, we're also launching a group program on Maven. We have been working with Maven to design the best program for female managers and individual contributors who want to increase their impact by focusing on executive presence and communication. We will hold our last lightning session on the 7th of October and the program officially begins on the 15th of October. And I will leave you all the details in the show notes, so if you are interested, feel free to reach out and we can have a chat. I would love to know what are your challenges at the moment and how the program can help you overcome them. And that said, today we're following up on last week's episode about visibility at work, where I mentioned that I could go deeper into personal branding, and it was one of your requests recently, how to build an authentic personal brand. And if you haven't listened to episode 12, this is your sign to check it out too. So let's dive into personal branding. And in all honesty, I used to hate this concept so much. And I know I'm not alone. Actually, I was teaching on this topic for a university leadership program a few months ago with an amazing group of female leaders. And when I asked who felt uncomfortable with self-promotion, not a single hand stayed down. So yes, we're not alone on this. And that's why I wanted to bring this topic here. And in my case, it comes from how I was raised. In my family, the focus was always what matters is inside. That famous quote from The Little Prince, what is essential is invisible to the eye, to the point that when my parents built our house, they left the front for the last. So for many years, we had a beautiful home inside with a falling apart front, and I deeply honor both of my parents. They were incredible life teachers. But in all honesty, I had to let go of the belief that only the inside matters. Because as much as I believe there is some truth on it, it was also limiting me. Here is the thing, when we are carrying an important message within, it matters just as much how you transmit it as what you're actually saying. Communication is part of the message. And we communicate as much as with the message as we also with the package that we deliver it. And you know, life has this funny way of making me teach the things I once struggled with the most. I never learned these lessons in my corporate career. I avoid them. So if you have been following my journey, you might know that I was working in finance for more than 13 years in market leader companies across 3 different countries, Uruguay, Ireland, and in the Netherlands. And during this time, I did some things right, of course, but without awareness, it was really hard to be strategic. But when I became an entrepreneur, I spent 6 months obsessed with becoming the best coach I could be, studying, practicing, learning, working hard, and focusing on the technical side, as I did all my finance career. The problem? I was in a new country, and nobody knew me. And one day, in the middle of a dramatic crying session with my boyfriend, I asked myself why no one wanted to work with me when I was putting in so much effort. And at that moment, my boyfriend looked at me and said, Isa, you have worked so hard to be the best coach, but if nobody knows about it, you will just become the best kept secret. And that hit me so hard because at that moment I realized I had been putting all my effort into only one part of the equation. And if there is something I have become good over the years, is to recognize when I have been completely wrong. And at that moment, I saw it. So I set myself a new challenge. Every quarter, I ask myself what I'm doing to not become the best kept secret. And I start applying this. I also incorporated with the women I work with, and the results in their careers amaze me. So today I want to share with you how to build an authentic personal brand and how this process also unfolded for me. And remember, I used to hate the word brand, but as a neuro-linguistic programming coach, I know that whenever I struggle with a word, I need to change my relationship with it. So I began to see my personal brand as my service to the world. My service to the world. That feels so good for me, and I hope it also gives you a reframe for you. So now before I explain how does this work, let me clarify something. You already have a personal brand. You are always serving the world, whether you're conscious of it or not. And as women, every day we are role models for other women, whether we invest time and energy into it or not. Every time one of us dares to do something, it gives permission for another woman to do it too. And every time we don't allow ourselves, we confirm another woman's fears. To put you an example, one of my clients recently told me that when she shared her salary with a friend, her friend was shocked but also inspired. At her next interview, she started asking for more until she got a higher salary. We're always role models. So given that you are already one, why not to do it with intention and consciousness? So now let's break down my service to the world. So if you observe this definition, there are 3 components here. My service, the world, and the communication between them. So today we'll focus on the first part, my service. And next week, in the next episode, we'll have a second part of this, focusing on the to the world side. So in the process of building an authentic personal brand, the part of focusing on the my service comes down to 2 simple steps. And that they are simple, it doesn't mean that they are easy. The first step is knowing who you are, and the second is knowing what is your service. So let's start with the first one, knowing who you are. I personally think that this is where most of us get stuck. We think it's a communication issue, but in my experience, when we get clear on who you are, what you stand for, and your vision, suddenly communication becomes natural. For years, I thought my communication was weak, but the truth was I didn't know myself and my vision well enough. And once I start being clear on who I am, what I stand for, and what is my big, bold vision, I start sounding more confident, more assertive, without following any specific how or framework on communication. And I always come back to the feedback I received so many times over my career that I sounded too sweet, that people won't take me serious. But the thing was, when I got clear of who I am, I still sound super sweet. I might even sound more because I allow myself to sound that way now. But people start taking me more seriously because I took myself seriously first. And this state is actually referred to as heart-brain coherence. And it occurs when your thoughts, emotion, and physiological processes are in alignment, creating harmony between the brain and the heart. And research from the Heart Math Institute shows that in this state, our heart rhythm becomes more ordered and balanced, which positively influence brain function, emotional stability, and clarity of perception. So, meaning that others often sense this coherence, which is why when we experience inner clarity, our communication and interaction with others naturally become more clear and effective. And here I'm not against frameworks or tools for communication. I love them, I teach them as well. But what I am saying is they are worth nothing if you're not clear on the inside. So, how do we know who we are? For me, who I am, in a very simplified way, because this is a very deep question, but it comes down to knowing my story, my values, meaning what I stand for, and my vision. And maybe you're asking, how do I figure all of this out? And the answer is by getting to know yourself. Spend time reflecting, journaling, asking, what makes me happy? What frustrates me? What legacy do I want to leave? When I'm 90 and about to leave this world, what will I want to be proud of? The big questions. I went through life so long avoiding them because there is discomfort in not knowing the answer. But that's where the magic happens. The quality of our life is proportional to the quality of the questions we ask ourselves. So we need spaces to be honest with ourselves, spaces where we face the discomfort of not knowing yet, or knowing the what but not the how. And we need to trust that clarity will come from action. And that's why I'm so passionate about creating this type of spaces through programs, individual coaching or group coaching, women in corporate circles. But I started this self-discovery process during a very low point in my life, grieving my mother 10 years ago. And I literally kept a notebook titled Getting to Know Isa. And this is not quick work. There is no shortcut here. It takes time and energy, but it's so worth it. Because nothing is more magnetic than walking comfortable in your own skin. And to truly love yourself, you must first know yourself. If you want to fall in love with someone, what do? You start spending time in knowing him or her. You start noticing their traits. You start asking questions to know more. You learn about the story. You learn about their dreams. And for me, working with a coach accelerates this process. That's why I began 6 years ago and I still continue today. And it's also why I'm so passionate about supporting other women through this journey. Because I see how in 6 months the inner awareness accelerates drastically. And when it does, it brings so many external results in their lives and careers. But there is many ways of doing this. Part of knowing yourself is knowing and owning your story as well. And one of my favorite tools is just to draw a timeline of your life. The ups and the downs, personally and professionally. And start observing what is behind those lows and those ups. Usually our lows and our ups also show our values, what's important for us, what are we standing for. And then tell your story. People often compliment how natural I sound when sharing even the hardest parts of my story, like my grief. But the truth is, I have told my story thousands of times. So many times that I fully own it. I still do this exercise I'm sharing with you in events I go or for myself. But I started first in writing, journaling, sharing it in events I went as an attendee, sharing it with my coach. And then I moved to Facebook posts. And then I moved to sharing it aloud. And I continue doing it. Because our story also keeps changing. And the last piece is vision. Recently, I was at a conference and Stedman Graham said something that really stayed with me. Most people are stuck because they don't know themselves and they don't have a strong vision. I couldn't agree more. I have seen dramatically shifts in both my career and my clients once they define a vision, especially when they allow themselves to dream even bigger. And I always say it's like using our GPS. We need to know where we are going in order to start walking towards it. Otherwise, you might find yourself walking in circles or following somebody else's vision. And once we start walking towards our vision, we might change routes, we might even change destinations, but we need a vision to take that first step. And when I say vision, I don't mean a rigid 5-year plan. It's more about asking yourself, what do you want to experience in this life? What are you walking towards? And if you haven't yet, go check our episode 5 where we dive deep into clarifying your vision. You need a vision that excites you and scares you a little, both at the same time, and especially that pulls you forward, that is bigger than your fears. And I want to share with you a tool because I know how overwhelming the process of self-inquiry can be. And one of my favorite ways to explore these questions is through creativity. When I prepared my personal branding class a few months ago, I rediscovered all collages I had made with my values, story, and vision. I did them when I was starting my business a few years ago, and it's incredible to see how tapping into creativity, I was already way more clear than I thought. Because at the moment, I thought I had no clue what was my personal brand. But now looking back, a lot of the things I add are manifested into my work. Because these are big questions and it's uncomfortable to not have clear answers. At least for me, it was, and it still is. But connecting with creativity, intuition, and the feminine made it easier to bypass my overthinking mind. So feel free to support yourself in the process by bringing colors, paint, stickers, pictures, or photos that call your attention to. Nice music, something to drink, or maybe even a friend to join you. And I see women doing this a lot sometimes for their personal life, even tapping into vision boards and manifestation. But why not doing it also for our careers? So far we have covered who I am. And the next step is, what do I offer? Your strength, your skills, your achievements. And again, these are big questions, and it's okay to feel uncomfortable in not knowing right away. Part of what you offer are your natural talents, and part of it are also skills you build over your life and career experience. That's why knowing who you are, what you stand for, and your story and your vision are really important in this step as well. And I always say intuition came as a natural gift to me, and I use it to create a safe space because I can feel what the other people need. I was very little when people were already opening up with me. And this is a natural gift that many of the women in my community share. And in the last decade, I have also trained it, learned how to trust it, and how to develop it even further. On the other hand, personal branding, confidence, public speaking are all skills that didn't come natural to me at all. But I find a way to do them in my own way, and that's why I teach. These are passions that came from my own struggles. And the challenge with strengths and skills are that many times we use what we believe are our main strengths and skills based on what the system has rewarded. If you asked me a few years ago what were my main strengths, I would have told you to be extremely organized and achieve things. Because that were the strengths and skills I thought I needed to thrive in my finance career. I still get a lot of these answers with the women I work with. But even when I was in finance and I start going deeper into what are really at the core my most valuable strengths and skills. I start seeing that most of the times my strength was in the X and Y. Being detailed while also being good to have a panoramic view. Being intuitive while also being organized. Paying attention to what people tells you as well. When I allow my intuitive side or spiritual side to develop further, one of the things that people start telling me was what strikes from you is your ability to jump from an Excel and a strategy mindset to a mystical side. And if you know me, you know I'm a fan of Excels and also Oracle cards. That I love structures and I love going in the flow. Actually, that is one of the comments I receive the most about my programs and events. That is going with the flow with a structure. And people usually get surprised on how organized and mystical I can be at the same time. And when I start hearing that, it also became part of my personal brand. And you are here in this podcast, which is meant for conscious and ambitious women. And I'm also mentioning this because I know for many of the women in my community, that is the case. So for this part, I would really invite you to look into your contradictions, because you might find some magic there. The things that they are not logically going together, but they are part of you. I also love using personality tests, especially the 16 personalities, not as boxes to fit in, but as guides. When I see something repeated that others also notice in me, I highlight it as a strength or a skill. And also, as I say, usually when we gain clarity about who we are, our values, and our story, our strengths and skills reveal themselves naturally as well. And this is a self-inquiry process. And remember, most of the times our strengths are so natural to us that they become invisible. We don't even recognize them as unique. Okay, beautiful women, so a quick recap. My definition of personal branding is my service to the world. And today we went into the first part of this sentence, that is what is my service, defining it into 2 steps. Defining who I am, meaning what is my story, my values, and my vision, and defining what is my service, meaning what are my strengths, my skills, and my achievements. So as you know, I want to keep this episode sweet and short. That means we'll have a part 2 where we'll dive into the second part of my service to the world, which is the communication to the world. Here I will guide you through how to make sure that your message, once it's clear inside, doesn't get lost in translation. And as always, I would love to hear what are you taking away from this episode. Thank you so much for being here with me today, and I will see you in the next week. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you like what you heard, let me know on Instagram at Nextfem Leaders, or send your thoughts and reflections to info@isabelfonseca.com. I truly would love to hear from you. And if it resonates with you, I would be so grateful if you left a review or a comment so that it helps more conscious, ambitious women to find this space. And please don't keep it for yourself, send it to another woman you know who needs to hear this message today. See you next Monday at 8 a.m. Until then, keep leading with your truth and remember, you already are a Nextfem leader.